What if everything you're searching for, peace, fulfillment, truth, has been inside you all along? What if silence isn't an absence, but the key to awakening to your true self? In the next few minutes, we'll uncover how you can break free from the noise of the world and experience the silence that leads to your highest consciousness. In a world that seems in a constant state of agitation, where every moment is filled with sounds, images, and voices demanding our attention, silence often feels like an unattainable luxury. But what if silence isn't the absence of sound? What if it's something deeper, something that already exists within us, waiting to be recognized? Ramana Maharshi invites us to look beyond the surface chaos of everyday life and find a silence that isn't found externally, but at the very core of our own consciousness. Have you ever felt like you were drowning in a sea of endless thoughts? Like the mind was a storm, full of chaotic, unstoppable waves? The sensation of being caught in that whirlwind is something we've all experienced, and often we don't know how to escape it. The constant noise of the mind, the incessant chase for something outside of us, keeps us from perceiving what we truly are. Ramana Maharshi, however, teaches us that true peace isn't found in controlling or silencing the external world. It's found in recognizing that beneath all the turbulence of the mind, there exists a deep, unwavering silence. This silence isn't the absence of sound, but the presence of something eternal. It's the essence of our being, the field of pure consciousness that lies beneath all thoughts and emotions. Imagine being in a room full of noise, people talking, objects crashing, sounds coming from every direction. Now, picture that in the very center of this room, there is a point of total stillness. Nothing changes there. It remains untouched, no matter how much the world around it moves. This is the kind of silence Ramana invites us to experience. It's not a physical silence, but the silence of the mind. And this silence, though seemingly absent, is the field where true peace and wisdom can arise. But how do we find this silence in such a noisy world, where we are constantly demanded and distracted? The first thing we need to understand is that silence isn't something we can seek in the external world. It's not in a secluded retreat, nor in an intense meditation technique that we will find this profound silence. True silence comes from the ability to stop seeking outside and begin looking within. Instead of continuing our incessant search for external answers, Ramana teaches us to simply stop and ask, "Who am I?" This question should not be answered with words, but with deep introspection, a quiet inner space that allows the true self to reveal itself. What this question does is remove us from identification with our thoughts, roles, and stories. It invites us to see that beneath all the labels we've placed on ourselves, there is a field of silence, of pure awareness. When we ask, "Who am I?" we're not seeking an intellectual answer. We're not looking for a new identity. We are simply challenging the identifications that we have with the ego. We are deconstructing the layers we've built around ourselves. And as we do, we begin to perceive what has always been there, the deep, silent being that observes all things. This silence within isn't something we need to force or strive for. It is always present. It's as though we're in a state of constant watchfulness, but without engaging with the flow of thoughts passing through us. True silence happens when we become observers of our own mind, without getting caught in its thoughts or emotions. It is the peace that already resides within us, simply waiting to be recognized. And when we begin to touch this silence, something magical happens. We no longer need to search for peace outside of ourselves. We no longer need external validation or achievements to feel complete. The peace we experience when touching the inner silence is the peace of our true nature, a peace that was always there, waiting to be remembered. As we enter into this space of silence, we begin to realize that we are not our thoughts, nor the emotions we feel, nor the roles we play. We are the silent awareness that witnesses all of this. And in connecting with this truth, we free ourselves from the chains of the ego, from the expectations and the constant search for something that never arrives. We find a silent freedom that is deeper than any success or achievement the world can offer. Reflect on this. The silence Ramana Maharshi speaks of isn't something you have to go out and chase. It's something that's always been there, waiting for you to look inward and recognize it. How does this first chapter feel? If you're happy with it, I can move on to the second chapter about the ego and the mental noise. The ego, the greatest noise that blocks silence. The mind is often described as a storm, a place where thoughts arise and crash like waves on the ocean. These thoughts can feel like an endless barrage, an ever-present noise that fills the space of our awareness. But what if the storm isn't the truth of who you are? What if beneath this turmoil, there exists a vast ocean of stillness, untouched by the chaotic waves? Ramana Maharshi understood that the mind, in its constant activity, is not our enemy. It's simply a tool, one that, when left unchecked, can lead us into confusion, suffering, and disconnection. But the key to finding peace is not in fighting against the mind. It's in recognizing that we are not the mind. The true self, the silent awareness behind the thoughts, remains untouched, even when the storm rages on. At the root of the mind's incessant chatter lies the ego, the sense of self that defines us through labels, roles, and external achievements. The ego is like a loudspeaker, constantly reinforcing the illusion that we are separate from others, that we are our thoughts, our emotions, and our circumstances. It insists that our identity is tied to the stories we tell ourselves. I am this, I am that. But Ramana Maharshi's teachings offer a radical truth. The ego, with all its noise, is not the essence of who we truly are. Think about it. How much of your mental energy goes into defining yourself? How much of your day is consumed by the need to prove who you are to the world? The ego thrives on these definitions. It exists in the stories we tell ourselves about our past, our fears for the future, and our constant striving to secure a place in the world. But this search for identity, for validation, is the very thing that keeps us trapped in the noise. The ego operates through identification. It convinces us that we are the sum of our accomplishments, our relationships, our roles in society. It creates a mental image of I, a fixed self that is defined by the labels it carries. But these labels, these identities, are not the truth of who we are. They are merely constructs, masks we wear to interact with the world. The ego's entire purpose is to preserve this image of self, to maintain the illusion of separateness, and in doing so, it perpetuates the noise that drowns out the silence within. When Ramana Maharshi asked the question, "Who am I?" he wasn't asking us to find a new identity. He was asking us to question the very nature of the identity we have constructed. The question isn't meant to be answered by the mind, because the mind is the very thing that has created the illusion of I. The question is a tool, a means to break through the layers of the ego and return to the truth that lies beneath all of it. By constantly asking, "Who am I?" we begin to peel back the layers of the ego. We recognize that the I we've been identifying with is not real. It's a product of our conditioning, our upbringing, and our life experiences. It's a mental construct, a mask we wear to navigate the world. The more we inquire into this question, the more we begin to see through the illusion that the ego has built. We start to realize that we are not our thoughts, our roles, or the labels we wear. We are the awareness that observes these thoughts, these roles, and these labels. The more we ask, "Who am I?" the more we come to realize that the I is a fleeting thought, a momentary identification that passes and leaves no trace. The true self, the one that Ramana Maharshi speaks of, is beyond all of this. It's not an object to be grasped or defined. It's the silent awareness that observes everything but is not attached to anything. It's the stillness beneath the mental noise. When we stop identifying with the ego, we start to experience the profound peace that comes with disidentifying from the mental noise. We no longer need to define ourselves by our roles or our past. We begin to realize that the peace we've been seeking was always there, underneath the noise of the mind. Reflect on this. What would it feel like to stop trying to define yourself through your accomplishments, relationships, or titles? What if you simply rested in the awareness that you are the silent witness to all experiences? How does this second chapter feel to you? Shall I move on to the next one, focusing on the distinction between solitude and loneliness in the context of inner silence? Solitude is not loneliness, the depth of inner silence. In a world that constantly demands our attention, where we are taught to seek validation and connection with others, solitude often feels like an uncomfortable state to be avoided. We associate solitude with loneliness, a feeling of being disconnected from the world, from others, and even from ourselves. But what if solitude isn't a negative condition at all? What if it is, in fact, the gateway to profound inner peace and self-awareness? Ramana Maharshi encourages us to look at solitude not as an absence of company, but as a return to the essence of who we are. Solitude, when experienced in the presence of inner silence, becomes an opportunity to reconnect with our true self. It is a space where we can hear the quiet voice of our soul, a voice that is often drowned out by the noise of the world. But there's a crucial distinction to be made. Solitude is not the same as loneliness. Loneliness is born from a sense of lack. It comes from feeling disconnected and believing that we need something outside of ourselves, whether it be people, achievements, or experiences, to feel whole. It's the ache of searching for something external to fill the empty space within. Solitude, on the other hand, is the recognition that we are whole and complete as we are. It's the ability to sit with ourselves without the constant need for distraction or external validation. Many of us have been conditioned to believe that being alone means being abandoned, that being without company means something is wrong. We fear loneliness, yet, ironically, it is often in the depths of our loneliness that we have the opportunity to encounter the silence within. The kind of silence that Ramana Maharshi speaks of is not a state of escape from the world, but a state of profound presence. It is the ability to be so deeply connected with the essence of who we are that we are no longer seeking to fill the space with external noise or company. When we allow ourselves to experience solitude, without the fear of loneliness, something begins to shift. The silence that initially feels uncomfortable starts to become familiar. It becomes a space of reflection, a space of inner clarity. In solitude, we can hear the whispers of our true nature, the voice of our deeper self that is always present, but often drowned out by the demands of the world. Ramana Maharshi's teachings remind us that we are never truly alone. The idea of separation is an illusion created by the ego. The truth is that we are always connected to the vast, infinite consciousness that pervades all things. This realization does not come from seeking external connections, but from turning inward and embracing the silence that lies within. It is in the stillness of solitude that we discover that we do not need others to complete us. We are already complete. The silence reveals that we are the essence of the universe itself, unified, whole, and interconnected with all things. In this space, we find a connection that transcends the superficial connections we often chase in the world. It is a connection to our true self, to the awareness that observes all but is not attached to any of it. What if we could see solitude as an opportunity to rediscover ourselves, instead of a state of being abandoned? What if, instead of running from silence, we allowed ourselves to sit in it, to rest in it, and to listen to the truth that it has to reveal? In that silence, we find the freedom from the constant need to seek validation, the freedom from the noise that tells us we are incomplete, we are whole, we are silent awareness. Reflect on this. What would it feel like to embrace solitude as a friend, rather than something to be feared? What if, in the quiet space of being alone, you discovered the deepest connection with yourself? How does this third chapter resonate with you? If you're happy with this direction, I'll move on to the next one, focusing on the art of being present and how silence transforms our relationship with the world. The art of being present. Silence as a state of being. In our fast-paced world, we are often caught in a cycle of doing. We measure our worth by what we accomplish, how much we achieve, and how much we can juggle in a day. Our minds are always racing toward the next task, the next goal, the next moment. We rarely stop to appreciate the present, this fleeting, precious moment that is always just here, yet often ignored. But what if the key to true peace isn't in doing more, but in simply being present? Ramana Maharshi's teachings are centered around this very idea, that true peace, true silence, isn't something we need to acquire or achieve. It's something that already exists within us waiting to be realized. This peace is found not in the future, nor in the past, but in the present moment, the now. To be present means to be fully aware and fully awake to what is happening right now. It means to stop looking elsewhere, to stop chasing after the next thing, and to simply experience life as it is. But how often do we truly do this? How often do we allow ourselves to be fully immersed in the present moment without the distractions of the mind, without the compulsive urge to analyze, to worry, or to plan? Ramana Maharshi speaks of the silence of the true self. This is not the silence of escape, but the silence of presence. It is a silence that arises when we are completely absorbed in what is happening now. When we stop trying to control the moment, when we stop trying to impose our will on the present, we allow the silence of the true self to reveal itself. Being present doesn't mean we ignore the noise of the world. It means we learn to observe the noise without becoming entangled in it. The world will always be filled with distractions, with demands, with tasks. But the question is, how do we respond to these things? Are we swept away by every thought, every emotion, every external stimulus? Or can we remain anchored in the stillness of our own being, watching the world pass by without becoming lost in it? When we are truly present, we experience life in its most profound form. We no longer see the world through the lens of the ego, which filters everything through our judgments, our desires, and our fears. Instead, we experience life as it truly is, raw, unfiltered, and beautiful. In this space of presence, the mind's constant chatter begins to fade into the background, and we begin to hear the quiet whispers of our true nature. Ramana Maharshi teaches us that silence isn't the absence of sound, but the presence of awareness. When we are present in the moment, we are fully awake to the truth of who we are. The noise of the mind may continue, but it no longer controls us. We are no longer victims of our thoughts, we are the silent observers of them. And in this silence we find freedom, the freedom to be, to exist without the need for external validation, without the need to do anything to prove our worth. What if being present was the most profound act of peace we could offer ourselves? What if we didn't have to chase after the next achievement, the next success, or the next distraction? What if peace was already here, in this very moment, simply waiting for us to stop and recognize it? Reflect on this. What would it feel like to live in the present moment, without the constant urge to achieve or control? What if by simply being present, you could access the silence that already exists within you? How is this fourth chapter? If it resonates, I'll move on to the final chapter, which explores the idea of spiritual awakening through silence and the realization of our true nature. Spiritual awakening, silence as the bridge to supreme consciousness. In a world where we are constantly searching for meaning, purpose, and fulfillment, there is an unspoken truth that Ramana Maharshi urges us to confront. Everything we seek is already within us. The search for love, success, identity, and spiritual enlightenment often leads us to external sources, hoping to find what is missing. We look for fulfillment in relationships, careers, possessions, yet we often find that no matter how much we acquire, something still feels incomplete. The more we search, the more elusive our sense of satisfaction becomes. But what if the root of our dissatisfaction is not the lack of external achievements, but the absence of a deeper connection to our true self? Ramana Maharshi understood that the source of our suffering and restlessness lies in the ego, the false identity we create through our thoughts, roles, and accomplishments. The ego is the part of us that feels separate, that is constantly grasping for something outside of itself to feel whole. Yet the truth of our being is far more profound than any role we play or label we wear. Ramana's teachings point us toward a radical realization. We are not the ego. We are not our thoughts, our emotions, or our physical bodies. We are the pure awareness that observes all of this. This awareness, this silent consciousness, is the gateway to spiritual awakening. It is the bridge that leads us from the illusion of separateness into the unity of all existence. The more we turn inward, quiet the mind, and inquire into the question, who am I? the more we begin to dissolve the illusion of the ego. We begin to see that the I we've identified with is not real. It is a fleeting thought, a temporary construction of the mind, created by our conditioning, experiences, and societal labels. In the silence of self-inquiry, we discover that the ego is nothing but a mental construct, an illusion. As we ask ourselves, who am I, and turn inward to observe the source of this I, we begin to realize that there is no fixed self. We are the awareness that observes the passing thoughts, the changing emotions, and the transient experiences. This awareness is eternal, unchanging, and beyond the grasp of the ego. The more we dwell in this silence, the more we come to recognize that we are not separate from the world. The division between self and other, between I and you, is an illusion created by the ego. In reality, we are all one. The same awareness that pervades our individual consciousness flows through every living being, every atom of existence. True spiritual awakening is not an event that happens suddenly, nor is it something we need to strive for. It is the recognition of what has always been true, that we are already free. This freedom is not something to be attained in the future or through external achievements. It is a deep, experiential truth that arises when we stop identifying with the mind and return to the awareness that transcends it. As we continue our practice of self-inquiry, we begin to see that the peace we've been seeking is not something outside of ourselves. It is already present within us at all times. The more we sit in the stillness of our true nature, the more we realize that we are already whole, already complete. We don't need to seek fulfillment, because fulfillment is inherent in the very essence of who we are. Ramana Maharshi's teachings show us that silence is not the absence of noise, it is the presence of awareness. The more we rest in this silence, the more we realize that our true nature is pure consciousness, unbound, infinite, and eternal. This realization is liberation. It frees us from the constant cycle of desire, fear, and identification with the ego. It frees us from the tyranny of the mind and allows us to experience life as it truly is, unfiltered, raw, and full of love. So, what if liberation is not something we need to achieve, but something we need to recognize? What if the freedom we seek is already here, waiting for us to stop seeking and simply rest in the awareness that we are already free? Reflect on this. What would it feel like to realize that your true nature is already whole, already free? What if, instead of striving for something outside of yourself, you simply rested